Now we'd like to welcome another very special guest and our keynote speaker, Tom Rankin. Tom is President and CEO of the Clean Tech Alliance. Under his leadership, membership has grown by a factor of 8 to 300 companies, research institutions, and other organizations in 6 states. Prior to joining the Alliance, Tom co-founded and was CEO of VisX Labs, a cloud-based bioinformatics company. Earlier, he led a team that turned around and doubled the size of Axio Research. He directed public affairs at Immunex and was president of the Washington Biotechnology and Biomedical Association. Tom served on numerous boards around the state, has an MBA from the University of Washington, a BA in economics from the University of Virginia, and he is married and has 2 adult children. He's a former Scoutmaster and an avid guitar player for Rank and File Band. And I went to, you should Google that, I went to their website, and really excellent. It's kind of my genre of rock and roll music. I really loved it. Anyway, come on up here, Tom.
Thank you very much to the Washington State University for asking me to do this. It's really a great honor and privilege. Well, you heard, I went to the University of Virginia as an undergraduate, and I went to the other university as a graduate student. Yeah, and I know all the jokes too. But I have to tell you, I've been in this job for 7 years, and Washington State University has been a member of ours, and so I've been over here quite a bit and worked with people. There's an office in Seattle I work with a lot, and the people at Washington State University are fantastic. And, every opportunity I've had to work with them has been unbelievable. It's a culture thing, I think, that goes all through this university, and it's a great institution. And I'm really excited about the Drive to 25 because I think, world class is what this place is and is going to be. It's going to be truly extraordinary, so go Cougs. So I recognize I'm the only thing between you and your award, so I'm going to try to say a couple things that are maybe interesting, and I'll try to say a couple things that are kind of quick too, so it won't take too long. So like Terry, I've had a chance to travel in my job and see the world from a different perspective. And I'm going to try to do some stuff tonight that might help you think a little bit bigger, maybe a little out of the box, maybe a little in the box. So let's try the first slide here. So the problem that we are working on is global. It's really big and it's really small because what we do as individuals has an impact, but it affects everybody on the planet. And let me tell you a little bit more about that. So we have a double clicker thing here. And I have to make sure it works here too. So 1 person in 10 on our planet lives in extreme poverty. That's not poverty, that's extreme poverty. It's $1.90 a day or less. It's $14 a week, $700 a year. And those numbers are adjusted to be equivalent to what's in your pocket tonight. Those aren't funny numbers. There are enormous numbers of people on this planet living in extreme squalor. And here's an example. Americans that travel to third world countries are often astonished at how much economic diversity there is in the world. Really rich people living side by side with really, really poor people. This data here implies that. Despite massive gains in living conditions all around the world, in many nations, large parts of the population are extremely poor. I had the chance to travel to India, for example, twice in 2015 to try to better understand both the country and the clean tech issues that they have. Now, it's really optimistic there. It's a great country with great people, enormous, incredible resources, and they have a new government there that I think has a chance to turn India into what China was in 1970. It could be enormous in the next 20, 30 years. But like many nations, India has enormous plans to use solar, wind, other renewable energy. But you cannot get around with the growth that's going on in that country, both in terms of the number of people growing, and it's now, if it's not the largest country in the world by population, it will be soon, and the growth in the economy that can be expected. Their energy needs are going to go through the roof. And coal is still the cheapest way to get electricity to people. So no matter what they do in terms of solar, wind, and everything else, the expectation right now is they're going to continue to have to use coal. And make no mistake about it, what's important in that country, and should be important in that country, is getting those people out of abject poverty. So here is what I think is the essence of the challenge that all of us have in India and in the United States and around the world. The energy solutions that they come up with, that they deploy in the next few decades, are cleaner and cheaper than coal. And that will make an enormous difference in the world. There we go. That's really hard to see from where you are, but these are a few pictures of my opportunities to go to India. And I love this slide. This is a place called Dobighat in Mumbai. And at the bottom of the slide, which is difficult to see, are people that, really impoverished washers of clothes. They get clothes from the hotels and other places, and they wash them. You can tell they're extraordinarily poor. And in the background, you can see high-rise buildings that probably are where some of the clothes come from. So very, very poor people right next to people that are very well-to-do. This is in Chennai in December of 2015. And in that year, we were there for a few days, and we were stranded for several days in a hotel while the city experienced 100-year floods. 500 people were killed. 1.8 million people were displaced, and damages totaled $16 billion. This is a view, again, hard to see. I apologize for that. But it's from a luxurious Mumbai lounge way up high in the air, as you can see. And what you see with all those little metal things down there, those are some of the many slums in Mumbai. People living in the slums are extraordinarily poor, but they've moved there for a better life from the countryside. They have a complex, vibrant economy in the slums. It's really amazing to watch and look at what's going on there, because it is complex. If you go down there, you'll see satellite dishes on many of the huts. There's electrical wiring. And there's no getting around. It's extremely poor, but it's still complicated. So I want to ask you a question, if you can see me. So poverty is a huge issue in the world. That's pretty clear. But since, say, 1970, how many of you think poverty has increased relative to the world, decreased, or stayed the same? So how many think it's increased? So how about stayed the same? No one. How about gone down? There are 7 people. So most of you don't have a clue. Hello, anybody out there? So let me show you the answer. Next slide, please. This, I think, is one of the most extraordinary slides I've ever seen. Again, it's hard for you to see, but so I'll tell you what's there. The beginning is the world in 1820. And the population is about 1 billion people. Almost everybody is living in extreme poverty in 1820. Almost everybody on the planet. And then you go out to today, 2015, you see there's a skyrocketing growth in the population on the planet. Extraordinary growth in the last 100 years. The red is extreme poverty. Since 1970, extreme poverty has dropped from 2.2 billion people to 700 million people. An extraordinary change. And I think part of our challenge in terms of dealing with climate and energy and the elimination of poverty is to make that continue to go down and do it in a way that's clean. So energy and poverty are closely linked. Really poor people do not have any access to power. Many people that have access to power only have it for a few hours a day. And shockingly, 43% of the people on the planet still cook over cook stoves. They don't have clean fuels or clean sources of electricity to feed themselves. This is also an extraordinary chart that it's hard to see. You can see the blue line through the middle of it. That is the carbon emissions between now and 2040 that's expected from the developed world. And the total up there is the total carbon emissions that are expected from the entire world. And you can see most of the growth comes from the third world. So that is the challenge. It's really important, I think, for you to think about this in terms of the impact that you will have on it, because I think there are lots of people out there working this issue. There are researchers here at Washington State University and every other research institution in the country that are working on this very hard. There are nonprofit organizations that are working on these issues. There are government agencies and policies that are working on these issues. But I would also suggest that another important player that you might not have considered if you really care about these issues is industries working on this. Because I think if you're going to solve that problem in places like India and around the world, you have to have folks that can not only come up with the solutions, but implement the solutions. So if you want to be part of the answer, industry should be part of your thinking as well. Any of those things can work. And in the end, if it's better, faster, cheaper, and cleaner, it's going to make a difference. So let me change the picture just a little bit. You're in an extraordinary region here. You are leaders. When we compare our region to the rest of the nation, we're blessed with a truly incredible clean profile for the generation of industry. So on your left, you'll see a long green bar. That's renewable energy in our region. And to the right is the pattern through the rest of the United States. And that, of course, is hydroelectricity. Cheap, clean hydroelectricity dominates our energy profile and makes us one of the cleanest regions in the nation. Deployed energy assets say a lot about the region. Washington is the nation's leading producer of renewable energy. It was started with the Grand Coulee Dam. It broke ground in 1935. 80 years later, it's still working. The dam remains the largest single hydroelectricity facility, generating 30% of our net hydroelectricity in the nation. Oregon is third in production of renewable energy, and Idaho is seventh. This is a remarkable platform for clean energy. So why is the Northwest different? I think it's a combination of our research institutions, our industry players, and a deeply rooted ethos about our environment. The Northwest has leading players in each of these categories, and more important is they work well together, and we're getting better at it. The Northwest is home to world-class leading research institutions in clean tech. We have 3 huge national laboratories. We have some of the globe's most distinguished research organizations. Combined, these universities account for more than $80 million in Department of Energy research and development funding. And the 2 largest research grants ever awarded by the USDA were won by Washington State University and the University of Washington for aviation biofuels research. This slide shows you a few of our core members that belong to the Clean Tech Alliance. Like the research space, the Northwest is home to some of the largest and most forward-looking clean energy companies and clean tech organizations in the world. Some have called Itron in Spokane the Microsoft of the smart grid world. There isn't a modern grid on the planet that doesn't incorporate some form of Northwest technology. We also have a fast-growing emerging companies area that is attracting global attention. The energy storage and resource management space, an incredibly important part of the clean energy future, is getting worldwide recognition. Demand Energy in Spokane, Doosan Grid Tech, Energy 2, and Una Energy Technologies have all been in the news in the last few years, attracting both attention and global investment. Our organization is comprised of 300 members, as you've heard. It's a trade association, so our job is to help our members grow and be successful. At the end of the day, I tell people our mission is to create jobs that are in this sector. And a trade association, I think, can be a great uniter in bringing people together. I'm often amazed at how people will come to our meetings and they'll have a discussion with somebody offhand at a table that leads to a new job, a new investor, a new customer, or collaboration. The environment permeates the Northwest culture. We don't call Washington the evergreen state for nothing. We see it in our public policy debates and initiatives. We see it in our building codes. It's an important part of the ethos and branding of our corporate leadership. Look at leading companies like Boeing, Amazon, Microsoft, Starbucks, Nike, Costco, Itron, REI, Nordstrom, Alaska Airlines, Hewlett-Packard, Micron. They're not only leaders in their own sectors, but they're leaders in the environmental movement as well. In fact, one of our corporate members, IKEA, now has one of the largest solar arrays on the planet. Energy storage is really the holy grail for clean tech, I think. Our state has combined policy, research, technology, and the community working together to move the needle on this. The legislature has twice approved Governor Inslee's request to fund a clean energy fund, and it's a total of $76 million that have been funded with a proposal in the existing legislature to go even further than that. And the result has been remarkable. Nobody talked about this region as a leader in battery technology 5 years ago. Now we're on every list. And it's because of things, the technology that's gone into things combined with the state efforts to make a difference. So giant are great research, great entrepreneurs. Investors, policy, cooperation, and collaboration are making a difference in this space, in this state, and in these states. And you're in the right time and the right place to make an enormous difference in the decades to come. So we move on to the be skeptical and smart section of the talk. So I don't know about you, but it just seems like there's an awful lot of garbage that I read and watch on TV, the news and the newspapers and so forth, and it frustrates me. I've been in a lot of meetings where people have been reluctant or even refused to have people talk or participate that have a different perspective than the people in the room. In my opinion, this is absolutely the wrong thing to do. It guarantees that we can't learn from each other and that we can't find common ground that will have an impact on solving problems. But we have to be smart about it too. Now, no one is going to be able to persuade 100% of the world to their way of thinking. But I am convinced through education and debate, most reasonable people will come to reasonable conclusions that will, in the end, make a difference. And I'm also convinced that the vast majority of Americans know next to nothing about climate science or about energy, and our job is to help them learn about it. Science is filled with stories of brave people that have persevered with knowledge and at the end of the day won the battle. Here's one example that I love. So this funny-looking guy, J. Harlan Bretz, in the 1920s found that the topography of this region was different, and he believed a cataclysmic event had occurred here that had shaped the eastern part of Washington. Now, at the time, established scientific thought that was preposterous. Everything in geology moved very, very slowly. In fact, as I understand it, they invited him in the late 1920s to Washington, D.C. for a big scientific exposition where he was, I suppose, going to be ambushed because all the great thinkers were going to there and tell him how dumb he was. Well, he held his ground. And not only that, but at that meeting he met somebody named Joe Pardee who had been working on something else. It turns out that in Montana there was a huge lake in ancient times, 10 to 12,000 years ago, that he'd found evidence of. And it had been thousands of feet tall, but had been dammed up by an ice dam. So over time, Pardee and Bretz figured out that this dam had broken dozens of times, 10 to 12,000 years ago, and unleashed massive amounts of water that had caused all the topography of that area to change. So here's an example in Dry Falls, Washington. That was once apparently one of the largest, or the largest waterfall in the history of the planet, where tons and tons of water came over in a matter of a few hours or a few days and shaped all of that. It took decades for Bretz and Pardee to persuade the science establishment that they were right. But they were right. And today they're viewed as heroes of science and they were able to transform the established thinking into something brand new. They thought outside of the establishment box, just like many of you have today, and persevered. So I want to change paths a little bit more to get you thinking outside of the box to end this talk. People talk about, do people have an impact on the planet? And, I think we do. We've only been around for a tiny fraction of the Earth's history. If we had a timeline the length of a football field, the entire history of humanity would be represented by less than 1/10 of 1 inch. It seems indisputable to me that the existence of human beings has had dramatic impacts on this planet. But I would submit to you that the Earth is not at risk. The Earth is likely to be around a lot longer than we are. What is at risk potentially is life, and advanced life specifically. The Earth has been through mass extinction events before, and maybe in the future, and hopefully not one of our own making. This is a book that came out several years ago called Rare Earth that I loved reading. Warden Brownlee wrote this fascinating book with a very different, contrarian point of view. Is it possible that advanced life, plants and animals, are rare in the universe, or even unique on this planet? Now, I don't know about you, but I grew up watching Star Trek, and I happen to know that there's another civilization on every street corner. So this is quite a shock for me to read all this. The fact is, we don't know. We have zero evidence that proves the existence of advanced life anywhere in the universe. We know that our civilizations have only been in existence for a tiny portion of Earth's history. Ward and Brownlee make some interesting arguments that are worth thinking through. Could we be the guardians of the most important treasure in the universe? So I want to conclude by reemphasizing that this is a global problem. It's bigger maybe than we thought about before. We have a chance to be leaders. And I hope all of you have shown, or will show, and have shown today that you can and will be leaders. You're on the precipice of something really important. Be skeptical and be smart. And be awesome. I've had a chance to come to this event, I think, for 6 years. And I'm every single time amazed by what you all do. You are incredibly smart. You think outside the box. You come up with solutions that I hope you will continue to work on because you have a chance to really make a difference in the world. So congratulations to all you. I know when you're on sports teams, everybody gets a trophy, but you all really deserve a trophy for being here because you are the stars of the scene. So thank you very much for everything you've done. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.